Our author of the month, Menaka Ramakrishnan, is a young, energetic management graduate based in Dubai. Her maiden book, In This Life or the Next, published by Vishwakarma Publications, is out. It is available on Amazon. I quizzed her on her choice of magical realism as a genre, her inspirations, her writing routine, and her unique perspective on the trope of reincarnation saga. Do listen to her.
Well, when I first think of an idea, what I do is I immediately jot it down on my phone, and then maybe it would be an idea of a character, of a story, of a chapter, of an entire novel, and then when I go back home, I have like this little journal where I flesh it out and I write down the points in each chapter that needs to be covered as much as possible. I don't like to plan too much because I know within the book there are certain elements that can be built in and can be built up. And then once I have at least a rough idea of the plot and ending in mind, what I do is I create character sketches, and I try to put in an equal balance of flaws and strengths within a character. But here again, I don't try to be very rigid. I try to let the character explore and breathe while I'm writing the story too. As for the routine itself, once I finally thought that okay fine, now that I have this structure in place, let me start writing it, I aim for at least 500 to 1,000 words every day, and this could be any time in the day as long as it's done. So this is basically my writing schedule. So whenever I feel like I need to get inspired to write, what I do is I either meditate, because that really helps clear my mind, or what I do is I see a creative video of some sort, or I read manga. Manga is Japanese comics, and they really help to fuel your creativity and to get you in that creative zone or space. Or another thing that I do is, just stay somewhere for a while and do nothing, because I feel like in that space of nothingness, a lot of ideas do come out. Yes, magical realism can get tough because you don't want it to be too much fantasy and you don't want it to be too much real life. So you really need to find that good balance. And what I thought was, should I write something that is completely fantasy, in which case I would have to build a new world altogether, which is a really great and fun process on its own, or should I write something based on a setting and universe that I already know? And that's when it struck me that since I am raised over here, since I'm raised in the city of Dubai, why not write a novel that is set in Dubai and also merges some of my interests and some of my beliefs? And I really am interested in past lives and reincarnation and the whole concept of what goes around comes around. So I thought that why not mix these two things, mix my interests and mix the place that I was brought up in, and try to come up with a story that would not be too fantasy, so be a low fantasy story in a sort of a realistic setting, and it's not too far-fetched as well. So we'll have certain elements of realism and certain elements of fantasy and magic. Yes, we've all grown up with revenge sagas and revenge stories of reincarnation. So of course you'd want to be a little different. So what I have tried to do is I have tried to make it someone else's revenge story. So it's not the protagonist's revenge story itself, it's someone else's revenge story in the book. And what she is trying to do, she's trying to stop that revenge from happening. So usually what happens in the stories is that the main character has a revenge saga from one life to the next, and they try to fulfill it by either killing the villain in the next life, or doing something that would basically fulfill their debts in some sort of action-packed way. But over here the point is that the main character doesn't want a murder to take place. She doesn't want someone to die in the current life, because people change and they change through lives. So this is how I've tried to make a difference. Through her past life visions, she tries to help others not commit atrocious acts in their current life. As someone who's primarily a visual thinker, I feel like imagery is a very important part of my life in general. I also feel like life is full of contrast, and life is a paradox on its own. So, in a number of places, I've tried to make the reader realize about those paradoxes. For example, the example given in the question, the different features between the protagonist and her younger sister. So, I want the reader to immediately try to imagine what the protagonist is thinking at that time, because everything is viewed through her world during her chapters. So that was one thing. She herself is a painter. The protagonist herself is a painter. So she thinks quite vividly about certain things too. And of course, to build worlds, because in one life, in the current life, everyone is in the city of Dubai, and in the previous lives, everyone's in different places, may it be an island or may it be in Rome. So I just wanted to build those worlds as well, and you need to have a certain sense of imagery to build those worlds so that the reader can go back and forth between the two timelines. So yeah, I've always loved first-person stories. I also love third-person stories, of course. But first-person stories always draw me in because you get to know the inner workings of the protagonist's mind. In this case, the protagonist is going through a lot of tiny little evolutions and changes throughout the story, especially when it comes to spirituality and spiritual themes. So she has a power, and in order to grow those powers, she needs to evolve. Her soul needs to evolve. So I felt that the first person narrative was best to showcase how she's evolving and her spiritual journey. And there are many sort of thoughts as well, which I don't think I would have been able to put if it was in third person. And of course, for the second character, which is a third person character, I wanted the atmosphere and the mood to be completely different. That's why, and also the character is a mysterious character, so it wouldn't make sense in this scenario to have a first person narrative. But for budding authors, I would say to just use a style that suits you the most. If you are paying more attention on building suspense and not wanting to give too much information about a character, maybe third person would be more useful. But if you want the reader to really get into really get into the character itself, then I feel like first person would be more advisable. The Vishwakarma Publications has been great, and I would also like to have a shout out to the book bakers and my agent Suhail Mathur for introducing me to Vishwakarma Publications and for supporting me and for the cover design as well. So thank you so much, Suhail and team. And Vishwakarma Publications, of course, they've been really supportive. I'm a new author, and to give me a chance to showcase my work and give me a platform to showcase my work, I'm so grateful. They also guided me a lot on the story itself, and I'm very, very thankful, and it has been great. The whole experience has been great. So currently I'm reading a lot of fantasy, and I'm a big thriller fan actually. I've read a lot of thrillers, right from Keigo Higashino to Sidney Sheldon, but right now I'm focusing a bit on fantasy. Especially since Game of Thrones got over, right now I'm reading The Hobbit, and I'm going to move on to the Lord of the Rings trilogy because I've not read that before, and then I'm thinking of rereading A Song of Ice and Fire. So yeah, that's my current reading list, and since these books are very large, I think it's going to take me a while.